Okay, we are live. All right, thank you everyone for joining us for another edition of Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm one of your co hosts. I'm Margot Paez. Over here on this side is Carlos Marroquin, your other co host. And down below, Carlos is Jackie Hernandez, your third co host on the show. And we have a special guest with us today. His name is Elliot Avila. He's with Black Lives Matter, and he's a community organizer. He's currently at Kevin DeLeon's house with Black Lives Matter, where they are camping out and demanding that Kevin DeLeon resign, and they intend to stay there until he does. So, Carlos, Jackie, why don't you guys kick us off on what has been going on in Los Angeles? Pretty
Yes,
fiery,
well,
pretty spicy.
yeah. First of all, good evening, everybody, wherever you may be watching us from. So glad to be here today. There's so much that we need to talk about today. Of course, our focus today is going to be Los Angeles City Council and the chaos that is happening uh, at over at the city of Los Angeles with the politics. It's a disaster. Is There's so much embarrassment that these individuals have brought to the city of Los Angeles. There needs to be some change. People are very, very upset. No matter where you go, people are upset. They are demanding the resignation of those all those people that were involved in the recent scandal, if you want to call it that way. But there is a lot happening right now. There's already two people that were involved that actually resigned. The president of City Council, Nuri Martinez, resigned just this week. The first one that had resigned was the president of the unions out here, Ron Herrera. But there's still two city councilmen that refuse to step down, Gil Cedillo and also Kevin De Leon. Jackie?
Yeah, I think that really pretty much summarizes the series of events that are happening right now. And to me, quite honestly, when we talk about Nuri Martinez's apology, not an apology, just a statement of her resigning. There was really nothing that she said about feeling bad or guilty or whatever about what she said. So it was not anything healing. It was just a statement. And no, I have to say, Nudi, you're not making other little Latina girls wanting to admire you. You're actually making me not want to be like you at all. So if anything that you taught us something, it's that we don't want to be like you. And you did not have an apology. So that was shameful. And for the other two, Kevin De Leon and Gil Cedillo, needs to step down. Like now, they're wasting our money. And I think Kenneth Mejia did post something about how much money they're making per month, about 25,000 a month. So you're seriously still damaging our city by taking that money and not resigning. So resign now. And Kevin Leon's political career is over. He's trying to still run for California lieutenant, and it's not going to happen. You're done. So that's kind of pretty much the nutshell of how things are going. And right now, BLM is demanding his resignation as they should. So that's what's happening right now, and we really hope that they resign as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carlos, should we bring on Elliot and have him tell us what's going on right now, or would you like to touch on anything else before we do? Uh oh. You're muted.
Yeah,
Okay, there you are.
yeah. All right. So for us to be able to understand where we at right now, we need to go back a little bit and see, talk a little bit about LA politics, which have been a total disaster these past few, I would say, decades, a couple decades. We did had a black mayor here in Los Angeles, Tom Bradley, lasted a couple, few years in office, and he was brought about, when the black communities got together and pushed for a person of color to be the mayor here in Los Angeles, and then he was succeeded by Mayor Villaraigosa, where that's where, in my opinion, that Los Angeles politics start going into a decline. Since then, we have had so many different politicians that have made it up there. I'm talking about politicians of color, and it is unfortunate that people that have struggled, these kind of particular groups that have struggled with representation are the ones that end up turning out to be the bad guys. It puts a really, really black eye on the political figures, the Latino and the Black community as well, because of the amount of bad politics, bad policies that we have seen over the years. So we need to understand that the state of the city right now, putting aside this particular scandal, is chaotic. We have homelessness in numbers that we have not seen before that affect mainly communities of colors. We have extreme poverty. We have issue after issue that have shown through the LA politics that they have not represented well the community. So people are tired. People are fed up, and I think that this just highlights some of the issues that we have been confronting. Besides the racism and the violence that we see that runs through our streets. So with that in mind, we do have someone, Jackie. We were able to connect with Black Lives Matter that are, as she says, are camping out in front of Councilman Kevin De Leon's home. But what are your thoughts? What else are you hearing, Jackie? I know that you've been really on the ground, talking a lot with people. I know there were some protests, this whole entire week. They have shut down city council, where they are not allowing city council meetings to continue because they are demanding the resignation of these two politicians. And I think that that's going to be the sentiment moving forward, that unless there's major changes taking place, this is not going to stop. And I think this is going to spill over into other bad politicians, bad city councilmen, like Mitchell Farrell. Right now he's the acting president, and by all means, he's not liked. He has sold out his vote to developers. This is the kind of stuff that really is coming out now, that people are fed up with the way city council has been running this.
I think this is I don't know what happened, but I will just jump in and talk a little bit about what's going on with the meetings and the city council meetings that supposed to take place tomorrow, and Friday they canceled it because Mitch was saying that he wanted these two to step down before the meetings continued. But we also know that he wanted to do them virtual starting this next week. And that is troubling because that means that a lot of folks are not going to be able to show up and demand the action that is needed to actually get these two council members down to leave. So it's troubling that they want to switch the meetings to virtual. It doesn't make sense. They said supposedly it was a COVID outbreak, but I thought it was weird because when I saw the video of them making the announcement, they didn't have masks on, and you would think like if there was an outbreak, you would see them with masks on, right? I don't know. That's just what I think. Or they would have been tested. We have tests I can literally tell you within 15 minutes if you have COVID or not. So I don't know exactly what is going on there. That was what they mentioned. Was part of the reason why they were changing them virtual. I have my suspicions. I don't think they want protesters to show up. And I think that is part of the reason why. And right now, though, the BLM protesters are outside demanding Kevin De Leon to step down before these meetings proceed, because they're also impeding the public from getting business done. And we have some tapes as well that Knock LA released that have a lot of information on the back deals that happen with endorsements and all that. We'll get into that, I think, after like Elliot interviews them, because it's a lot and I want to get what's on the ground right now, because Kevin Leon needs to step down, and this is a priority for people to move forward with the meetings. Elliot, are you on? Margaret, do you have anything to say? Because also, before we...
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and get Melina, or do y'all want me to give y'all a summary of what's happening on the ground here?
Give us a summary first.
Yeah. Well, we are outside of supposedly Kevin De Leon's home, where he's registered, where we have the public record of his residence. However, it seems that Kevin is using a series of safe houses, it seems, to move around, to stay out of view and to stay out of public scrutiny. But we are out here with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and Melina Abdullah. We have their folks are camped out here, and they are planning on staying out here until Kevin resigns. With me right now, I have Melina Abdullah, and I'll pass the mic over to her. Here you go. Here you go.
Hello. Are they asking?
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. We're good. So tell us what's going on right now, where you're at.
So we're
First of all,
about
tell us who you are and what you do, and then tell us what you're up to.
sure. My name is Melina Abdullah, and I'm co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. And I'm here with, I don't know, at our peak today, we were about maybe 75 folks out in these streets in front of, or as close to in front of, Kevin De Leon's house as we could get. We're here to he has to step, and that's we're not tolerating anti-Black racism, and there have to be consequences for not just words that were spoken or hurt or pain in our heart. We have to remember that there are substantive harms that he's created, and what that group was conspiring to do was to diminish Black power. What Kevin was talking about specifically is undermining Black protest and Black organizing. And we're saying we don't want that kind of person on our city council. So we're going to camp out until he gets out. We just finished dinner and had a small political education session about what solidarity looks like. And we're going to continue to do this work and hope that he gets out quickly, but we're no strangers to being in this for the long haul. It took us 3.5 years to get Jackie Lacey out. It took us 54 days. The encampment in front of City Hall in 2016 was 24 days. We're hoping that this one will be much shorter, and I'm hoping to speak into existence that he'll be out by Tuesday.
Yes. Thank you for coming on the show with us tonight. We have seen how the pain that the city of Los Angeles has been going through over not only this, but the policies that have been coming out of City Hall is really hurtful when we struggle so much to have representation, at the highest level of the city. Then just to turn around and see actions like this. What in your opinion needs to happen besides removing these people out of office? But what are the other steps that need to happen for us to start, having better representation and better community?
Absolutely right. And it's one of the things that Black organizers in Los Angeles committed to. When the tapes came out, when the audio came out last Sunday, Black organizers very came together for a marathon meeting on Monday and developed a set of demands, a unified demands. There were 68 of us on that call. And that set of demands is available at tinyurl.com/BlackLA2022, tinyurl.com/BlackLA2022. And at the top of the agenda is the removal of all 4 of those folks from their seats. So we wanted all 4 of them removed from their seats. But very quickly behind that is also things like an investigation into the redistricting process. So we know that they were in that back room attempting to redistrict Black folks out of power, to leave Black districts with no assets and to diminish Black power that way. We also know that changes need to take place in the LA County Federation of Labor. Ron Herrera was running the County Federation of Labor in ways that he said it himself on the tape, to empower unethical and unfair and unjust city leaders at the expense of Black people. And so there needs to be a massive overhaul, is what Pastor Wilson calls it. Pastor Wilson, who's been a long time organizer with Unite Here, a massive overhaul of the County Federation of Labor. And then Pete White from Los Angeles Community Action Network reminded us this was an initial set of demands that you'll find at that link. But we have to remember that these 3 city council members their hands and lots of different policies and lots of different spending priorities. And so we need to really go back and revisit, just like we would if a cop was found to be a liar or a murderer, or to engage in the kinds of behaviors that these city council members had. There's a mechanism in the law to go back and look at every single case they ever touched. Well, we need to go back and look at every single policy that these 3 city council members ever touched and revisit how they got to the outcomes that they did.
Thank you so much for that. I think that is the essential part of moving forward and knowing what to do, because a lot of the times, people become very just disillusioned with the government, and they're like, why vote, why do anything? And it's like, no, this is time to organize. So I'm really happy to hear that we have this link, we have this accessibility. So thank you for being with us and telling us about what's going on.
Melina, this is Margot. I was wondering, prior to this revelation, what was the relationship with Kevin DeLeon and the Black community? Was it tenuous at all, or was it relatively positive?
I mean, I think all of us are taken back by all 4 of their positions. If you think about who would be conspiring in a room against Black, these are not the 4 that you would name. Kevin DeLeon was a student of mine, and was an undergrad at the Claremont colleges, and he had class both Haynes and election. We remained in touch for 20 years. And I didn't see eye with him on many different things, but actually didn't think he would be kind of anti-Black racist that he's demonstrated himself to be on that audio. And so I would say, like, personally, when you think about Kevin, he used to show up at Black things. I think about one of my closest friends and comrades was a General Jeff, the mayor of Skid Row. Kevin, who financed his when he passed last year. Kevin has been in communication around things like, not that he did the right thing, but affordable housing. He has up to Black events. He's not one who has a history of running from Black community, ran for mayor and then from Black community. But he was not as Mitch Farrell is thought of as a much blatant, overtly council member, Kevin DeLeon. We could move Kevin DeLeon on some things. We know now why we move him on things like police spending. It's because always been and demonstrated himself to be on those audios not a friend to Black community.
Yeah, Melina, we're having a little bit of trouble with your audio right now, but I think we caught the gist of everything that you were saying just then. Jackie, do you have any other questions? Or Carlos, if you're there. We're having some technical difficulties today. It's a little overwhelming.
Well, my
Um,
question,
Go ahead, Carlos.
my question, my question, yes, my question will be to Molina. What are some of the things that the people can do to support your efforts, to support the movement, to support everything that is being done on the ground? What are some of the things we can do?
Well, one, show up. So on the corner of La and Fair Park, Rock, and we need all hands on deck. We need everybody to come out and show up. Today was an interesting day. Really, marked for me one of the most significant times in Black Lives Matter's history. Kevin De Leon tried to get some brown folks to show up and antagonize those of us who were saying that Kevin De Leon needs to be held accountable. About 10 brown men walked through our space, which was mostly held down by Black women, Black mother age women like myself and like women who were older, along with our children. And they walked through our space. They engaged in it felt like an attempt to be intimidating. And then they went to Kevin De Leon's front door and kind of held court with media. We were upset. We walked in, but something told them just listen first. And they were saying things that were inaccurate and problematic. But when they finished, we asked if we could engage them in conversations. And by the end of the 10-minute conversation, all 10 of those switched supporting Kevin De Leon to supporting us. And I think what was really important about that was not just the outcome, but that it revealed the truth of the relationship between Black folks for the most part. When we in the streets, we organized together. It's not just Black folks being killed and harmed by police, it's brown people. And so this is a long way of saying that everybody who stands with Black Lives Matter, who says that we need to be spending on things like housing and mental health resources and parks in our community rather than police, to show up on La Rota and Fair Park. Every single day, we are here 24/7. If you can sleep in the night, it's also a good time because we got pizza out here. We got sodas out here. We got people with dogs, people with their kids. We got soccer balls and Uno and a couple guitars out here. We got some dominoes. But we also have really great conversation building. So that's what we need. We need foremost for people to show up. We need people to call Kevin De Leon and tell him to resign. We need people to take to their own social media and hashtag Operation and hashtag Black Lives Matter. If you're on Twitter, you can follow what we're doing at BLMLA, and on Instagram, it's BLM Los Angeles. So those are some of the primary things that we hope to get Kevin De Leon out of in short order.
Could you repeat that the street location where you guys are currently camped out?
Sure, we are at La Rota, LRODA, and Fair Park Ave, which is really closely to Occidental College. So if folks could come out again, Fair Park and La Rota is where we are.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and add that to our comments on the live stream. While I'm doing that, Carlos or Jackie, would you mind go ahead and carrying on with the interview while I take care of that for our audience?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your hard work, not only on this, but over the years. You're such an inspiration to so many people, and to be able to see that people are coming together is really inspiring, because this is an issue that transcends, our problems that we have been facing, because we understand that if we don't come together, no one is going to fix this. So it's about stepping up. It's about, as you say, it's showing up. So we want to commend you for that work that you're doing, always at the forefront of the issues that we care about.
Thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement, but more than that, I appreciate all of you all's work and the solidarity work that we've been doing together for many years.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if I can tonight, I will be there.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you,
Please
everybody.
be safe.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Yeah. So just to recap, we have folks out there on the ground reporting, Elliot, and a special guest, uh, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter here in Los Angeles, um, have joined us and give us a pretty much an insight of what's happening and why the response. Jackie, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that we need to do is show up, right? Is show up in the way that we can, and we have the streets now to understand where everybody's at. But apart from that, too, we need to really get talking about what is going on with a lot of the different parts in government, or even the endorsements and the clubs, the Democratic clubs, because we know, I mean, Melina mentioned, Dr. Abdullah mentioned that, Kevin Leon was not a person who they thought was anti-Black, right? Coming up and being there with them, and pretending, I guess, solidarity, because as we see, the words that he used behind closed doors did not show that. And I think that's the hurtful part, especially when someone pretends to be there for you. And she mentioned the work that they recognize that he's done, but upon knowing this, really, really, just a stab in the back, really, for a lot of people, because it really is hurtful. It's not just like, oh, he said something about me and now I'm mad. It's like, no, he did. The policy was against Black people and the conspiring against their assets. So to me, it's so important for Black Lives Matter to continue this fight, because that's what they've been doing this whole time since BLM began, is trying to change policy to improve Black lives and improve everyone's lives, because we know that when policy changes in favor of Black folks, that it is something that brown people also benefit from. So I think when she talked about the people that were sent to pretty much intimidate them and that they were brown people, like, that breaks my heart, because my God, we're in this mess because brown people could not see past their own benefit and their own desire to be in power. So we do need to really reanalyze our own motives too. I think we need a lot of self-reflection, all of us, and then stand in solidarity when we understand where we're at, because again, when you pretend to be in solidarity like Kevin De Leon, you can show up, but it doesn't mean you're there in heart. And we have to be there in heart. So I think there's a lot of inner work that we have to do too.
Yeah, it's very
Well,
surprising. Oh, go ahead, Carlos.
Well, and this is something that bothers me a lot, because when the Black Lives Matter movement came about during the pandemic, and after the killings that we saw, a lot of people rose up, and politicians made a turnaround, and they actually started to show up and being part of a lot of the protests, and all of a sudden we see them waving flags, BLM, and all this good stuff. But then after, when things were settling down, and after the demands start coming out, for example, the police accountability, the defunding the police, a lot of politicians began to backpedal. They didn't want to take that hard of a stand. And see, that's what I see is the politicians are really good in being very calculative. Every decision they made is based on something that will either going to benefit them or not. I see that really clear, that a lot of times the policies that are coming about is not because of the good of the people, it's because they are being calculative, and they pretty much just give enough, but not what it needs to happen. Case in point, I'll give you an example. The recent policies that changed and were passed regarding education by the Biden administration. We all know that people are suffering because of student loans are really heavy on the people. So they give just enough to make you think that they're doing something. And that is exactly what is wrong with politics. That they don't take decisive, they don't take bold decisions to help the community, to help the people, to represent the people. They just pretend sometimes that they are doing something, and in reality, they're not doing anything. And this makes it very clear that there are, as they say, as a famous politician said before, they have a public opinion and then they have a private opinion. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think this highlights that quite clearly, that these politicians had a very different private opinion of their constituents. And that, I think this shows a really important point too when we talk about identity politics as well, because the Democratic Party has been pushing this for a while, like, vote for me because I look like you, right? And we're seeing that this doesn't necessarily pan out for politicians to do things that actually benefit us and other people in the community. What we want are politicians who are going to be ethical, who are going to be moral, and who are going to work on behalf of the people. Kevin DeLeon, Nuri Martinez, who else do we have here?
Gil Cedillo.
Gil Cedillo, right? That these three elected representatives here in Los Angeles have failed the community because they have created distrust and tension between two groups of people that should not have been there. It should not be happening right now. It just really makes me feel just disappointed, because this city has a history of violence against the Black community, going back to the 60s, when Black Americans, African Americans, moved into Los Angeles from the South, thinking that they were going to have a much better life here. And it actually, they faced incredible violence and racism from the Los Angeles police and, of course, the politicians. And that required a lot of healing. There were the Watts riots, and then in the early 90s, we had the Rodney King riots. And how can it be that in 2022, it's not your typical white, strictly European looking face that's leading this racism, but it's somebody with a Spanish surname whose family were immigrants from Mexico or somewhere in Latin America, right? And not that long ago, probably. And how quickly you forget when you're in a position of power that you came from a humble background, right? I mean, it's appalling, it's disappointing. And I really think that we have to stop electing people just because they look like us, and we have to elect people because they're going to do what is right for us, like Mike Bonin, for example. And one of the things that they're demanding for Mike Bonin, demanding for the city council, is that the city council elect council member Mike Bonin president of the city council for the remainder of the current term. And I think that is absolutely the very least that they can do. He has certainly been a fantastic progressive politician, and he may have he may be a white guy, but you know what? He's not out there on tape, saying horrific racist slurs and undermining one part of our community here in the city.
Yeah, I think honestly what you said, Margaret, about Latinos betraying and how easily people can forget. It's so easy for so many to forget. And I say this criticizing my own community because I come from a Mexican community, and I see, and I think this is the reason why I'm saying, like, we have to really look at ourselves and our culture and the way that we have been brought up, because white supremacy has been such a huge topic for Mexican communities, right? It's always been like degrading the indigenous populations, degrading the Black people, and always wanting to strive to be whiter, to be more accepted, to be more American. And with this also comes a capitalist component of being here and making money. And then you add all of that up. And then people are just like, oh, well, people don't try hard enough, or people are this, or people are that. And then they forget that they were probably immigrants. They forget that their parents were immigrants, and they strive to Americanize and to capitalize on everybody else. And that is exactly how you got from that mentality and that cultural flaw in the way that we have been, the Latino community has been continuing to do it, because we don't self-reflect. We don't self-reflect. We don't think about why things that even people like say on WhatsApp and family chats are racist. And if we don't even check that, if we don't even talk about that, that comes in, and you see it appear in politics. So I think, as I mentioned just before, like there's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of trying to understand even our own history. I don't think a lot of us know our own history, and even understand how also brown communities and Mexican communities were treated in the 60s as well. And we're treated even before that, when Mexicans were just rounded up and just thrown out, right? Even if they were born here. So there's a lot of history that we tend to forget, and we do so out of convenience to survive in this country, and then to capitalize on immigrants, on people who are marginalized. And then, when it comes to politicians, it's the identity politics of pick me because I look like you, as you've mentioned. And then we have the question of who are the Democratic parties endorsing and why. It's someone who looks like them, but then also has the agenda of a neoliberal agenda to continue the marginalization and the oppression to our people. So when I look at the Democratic Party too, I am very skeptical about their intentions when they try to choose people of color. And we see that now, right? I know for a fact, and I'm not going to name names because this is I want to protect people, but I will say that a lot of folks who are progressive and have been trying to get endorsements by some of these parties were denied. And they were going with the dudes who were neoliberals, and who were pretty much with the agenda that Democrats like when it comes to corporations, when it comes to developers, when it comes to making money. And it's already been 3 people who have told me about their experience with a hostile environment from these parties. And then now we're back to just the release tape on Knock LA that we have heard with Ron Herrera and with Hannah Chow. So with that one, or Cho, oh my God, I'm sorry. I do need to be corrected on that. If I'm saying it wrong, please let me know. But basically, those tapes are talking about conspiring against different candidates that right now are running. And now we know that there is this whole bought out. They literally said we need to buy out the LGBTQ folks in the Dems, and we need to buy out the young Democrats in that whole the clubs basically that are endorsing people. They said buy out. So that language is very explicit of their agenda and how they make business. And the Republicans, we know they're tenfold bad. They're they're obviously corrupt. But then we need to also look at the Democrats, because this is where we want to ensure that these are the only 2 parties that have absolute power at this point, and we need to ensure that the Democrats that are running are the progressive Democrats. Now that we know the information from those tapes, we can really assess the situation with more certainty that there is buying out and corruption happening. So that's what I wanted to point out, to really connect those dots, because also these 2 folks on these 2 tapes, one of them was an Asian and one of them was a Latino. So those are also minorities that are supposed to be working for people. We see the Asian community also suffering in Koreatown. We also see them in Chinatown being evicted. So a lot of the seniors, a lot of the areas for the senior centers are being are being closed. We know that from Huizar and Gil Cedillo, who had a lot of dealings with developers who got some of these people out of their homes. These are communities that also need a lot of support. And we see these two groups conspiring against a labor organizer, and this was Hugo Soto Martinez, against him, who obviously has an agenda to improve housing, to improve conditions in those areas. So when we look at that, it's not just conspiring against a candidate; it's conspiring against the people who want a better politician that can help them achieve better development, better for them, right? Affordable housing, affordable food, everything else that they need to survive, as we see here in LA. And a lot of it is local. So when we see those tapes, there is no surprise now why some of these candidates are not being endorsed. And we need to ensure that we're paying attention and going harder to really support the progressive candidates that we know exist and that can do so much better.
Right. So, to put all this into perspective, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that has been done already, but we're still way far behind. City halls needs to be cleaned up, top to from all the way around. We got to take a hard look at each city council member, regardless of who they are. And I'm going to say this, regardless of who they are. Even if you call yourself a progressive, this is the time that we take an inventory of the work that has been done or is being done. And we have to hold you accountable. We have to hold each member accountable, because the amount of corruption that we have seen over the years at City Hall, when we allow developers to come in there and control City Hall, it's bad. It's bad for our communities. It's bad for our families. It's bad for Los Angeles. When we see big money ruling and decisions being made based on profit, not on the safety and care for the people, it is bad for the communities. It is bad for Los Angeles. And this has been going on for way too long. We have seen scandal after scandal after scandal coming out of City Hall. People are fed up. We need to hold politicians accountable. The days that you're going to do things behind closed doors, those days are over, should be over. And we should start by having meetings in public, not behind closed doors like they usually do. All these backroom deals that take place at City Hall, that has to stop. We need to empower our communities, our neighborhood councils. They're being controlled by the same politicians that are so corrupt. Everything is being rubber stamped. Nothing gets done for the people. Why? Because, again, the level of corruption that exists. But racism, make no mistake, racism is very real at City Hall. The Oaxacan community has been left behind a long time ago. If you look at that community over at MacArthur Park area, this is where there's a lot of racism that exists. There's no resources coming to our communities. We drive through South Central and we see block after block after block of poverty, with no resources coming to small businesses. We saw that during the pandemic. So again, I think that this has helped to elevate the issues that we care about and to expose the racism that exists against our communities, but also the racism that exists in the hearts of the politicians that's supposed to be leading and setting out an example. They made it very tough on the community leaders. And our hearts go out to them because they've been struggling to bring the people together. So it is hard. It hurts when they make decisions and make comments like this that only makes it harder for those people that are fighting for the communities.
If I can just tune in real quick to mention that this is why such things as the People's Budget LA that was led by BLM was just sort of listened to. They had them talk about it in City Hall, but it was never actually taken seriously, because if it was, we would have seen those budget changes that were for the community. But City Hall and, a lot of the city council members did not have that in mind. They don't care. They didn't care, because if they did, they would have ensured like these experts for this budget that know their community, that want the best for their community, would have been listened, and they would have considered that budget. And we know from the tapes from Knock LA that Nury Martinez and Kevin De Leon and Gil, they were talking about also assets that benefit them for the Olympics. So when we talk about the Olympics, we're talking about displacing people and then wanting to make the bridge, the Sixth Street Bridge that was made for the Olympics. In many senses, it was not made for the community. They could have built housing or could have done so much more. So many people in Boyle Heights have been displaced. So the tragedy as well is that the Olympic is not going to bring sustainable jobs and sustainability to LA. Neither is it going to bring actual relief and housing for people. It's going to displace them. That's just what it is. So by them conspiring to want more Olympic money, more Olympic deals, they were not doing it in the interest of LA.
Margaret, let me add something here that is really important. And I don't want to lose that thought before we move on. But I want to talk a little bit about the unions, because, as you know, unions are close to my heart. I'm a union person. I believe in unions, but I also see a lot of corruption within the unions, the leadership. I see a lot of manipulations and an installment of officers. Just like in politics, the other kind of politics, where people are appointed who they want in there, instead of actually allowing members to decide who their leader should be. They manipulate a lot of this stuff, and that's no secret. We all know it. We see it. We have people that have been in leadership there for a long, long time, and they're not effective anymore. We need to break that cycle also. What happens in the unions? We need strong unions more than ever. And we saw them, when it came to elections, how even the people that they wanted to endorse, they pretty much were up and down votes of who they were being directed to endorse, not because of convictions of the people, because people had their they done their research, or because they thought whoever they was going to be a better candidate. They were told who to vote for. I mean, we need to be able to have freedom within the unions for people to allow to start choosing their own leaders, and not appointed, who's next, who's the next one. We understand that we have to have strong leaders, and we understand that some people have experience and what have you. But when we are seeing the same results over and over, it's time to change. So the politics that you see at City Hall, at the county or state level, federal level, of just rubber stamping people just because they say that they're Democrats, or because they are progressives, or whatever you want to call yourself, those days are over. We need to start, putting people in there that really have the heart of the people, even if it's for one term. When you see people there for decades already, they're not effective anymore. We need to move on. I'm losing my voice here.
Well, you're absolutely right, Carlos. And, the unions don't have the best record either when it comes to dealing with racism. There has been a history of racism and not enough anti-racist work within the union leadership and within the unions in general to really right that historical wrong. Jackie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I will also add about the sexism part in unions. And we know this from the movements that were happening with women back in the day with 9 to 5, which was the 1970s. This was a group of women who wanted to be in a union and wanted to fight against sexism. And they tried to get into unions. And these man-dominated unions were also sexually harassing them and excluding them, pretty much making fun of them, like, what are you going to do in this union, And this is the reason why 9 to 5 was created. This was a union for women due to that circumstance. So there was also racism, and many times when the unions were created back, let's say in 1900s, when a lot of the labor movement was happening, a lot of the white unions and the Irish, so a lot of them were Irish or Italian, or in many places here in the United States, were excluding Black people. So you couldn't be in a union if you were Black or a person of color. So they were white centered. And we know that unions are great. They're great, and we all need them. Obviously, they created the middle class in America. People will tell you that industrialization did that. That's not true. It was unions. And we know that it was a great step forward for workers. But that's the other issue. When we reduce our conversation about unions to just the working class and not understand the implications of racism in a lot of our systems, we exclude the fact that we need a lot to do when it comes to unions that support Black people, unions that support brown and Asian, unions that support women, and now also unions that support LGBTQ folks, because they also have been excluded. And I just want to add, the sex workers here in California, that's another group of people who are trying to unionize and create protections for themselves. So it's not, before it was only like white men who were benefiting from unions, and right now slowly we came to having brown folks. But as we see as well, when we don't do more about the intersectionality, we are still stuck with man dominated spaces and racism and sexism and all of these other components that exclude a lot of people. So we need to really take a look at not only the working class, because sometimes it's really reduced to men, and we really have to see the intersectionality of all workers and all different oppressions, and really find the foundation of what makes us strong to get together and tackle those. Again, a lot of inner work. I think a lot of dialogue needs to be done. I have seen horrible comments from some men in unions talking about sex workers being like, oh my God, they want to unionize now? Like how, like what? Like they kind of are making fun of it. But quite honestly, we see that because of the sexism and the type of alienation that they have about the struggles of women, and not only women, but also people in general who do sex work. So that's pretty much another component I wanted to add, since we're talking about unions, and they will be voting. I think they already voted on the union. I'm not sure exactly what the results were, but if I do have it, I'll post it up. But just in general, Carlos really opened up that conversation, and I think it has to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sex workers are so important to unionize too, because there are one of the most marginalized and at-risk groups in society because of the work that they do. And if the unions don't understand that importance, the importance of that, then they're not going to be able to provide those benefits for everyone in a fair way. I always think that it's really important to focus on the most marginalized and then work up from there, because if you can protect them, you can pretty much guarantee that you can protect everybody else in society. So yeah, these are absolutely things that need to be worked on within the unions as well, and in society in general. But I think we expect a little bit more from the unions given the history of unions in the United States, and how they were formed, and what that means for labor and for class struggle in general. Carlos.
Yes. So moving forward, it's going to be interesting this next week to what's going to happen here in Los Angeles, because people are not going to forget. This is not going to go away. That's for sure. If Kevin De Leon or Gil Cedillo think that this is going to go away, it's not going to go away. I know that Gil Cedillo has just a couple months left before he was voted out, but pretty much, in my personal opinion, both of them, their politic world is out. They done. That's my personal opinion. I don't think them being able to be effective, any longer. People are holding them accountable. People want to see them step down. So, I have worked with both of them in the past, and I gotta say, this was very,
I
very,
think he cut.
very
Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Oh,
Can I just
Oh, there
make
you are. Wait.
there we
He's
go.
coming back.
Oh no. Sort of.
Sort of.
I just want to
Carlos.
make the point really quick about sex workers voting. So I found out the ballots will be mailed out October 14th, and they're due November 4th and November 7th. So we
Can
will
you
see if
hear
they can vote in.
me now?
No. But I just wanted to mention that because I want people to know that these are the dates when they're going to be voting to unionize, and they're only able to do that because they're not considered gig workers, because California, the proposition, I believe it was 60, that the government pretty much said it was not
I
constitutional.
don't know what's
So they're considered.
happening here. Oh my goodness.
I think you're
Can
good
you
now.
hear me now?
Kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
We can't
All
see
right.
you, but we can hear you. No, it's so
Because
cut off.
yeah.
But let me just finish my thought. That way, we can proceed. But they're able to unionize because in California, they're considered employees. So gig workers are the proposition was pretty much ruled out, and people have to be considered as employees here in California. So that is a reason why they are able to unionize, and they talk about this themselves as well, as why they're able to unionize. And I think it's so important because this is how they're going to be able to ensure that they are employees and have those protections that employees have.
Yeah, that's really great. Carlos, I think you're
Carlos,
back.
yeah, let's try to see.
Yes,
I
I'm
think you're
back.
back. Yeah.
And I don't know
Yes.
where I left, but I wanted to just, making sure that we continue to focus in moving forward and understanding that we have a lot of work to do, but our communities are stronger together when we are together. And the actions of a few should not stop our community leaders from moving forward. I've been spending a lot of time all this week calling some of the community leaders that I know that I have worked with in the past, checking up on them. and making sure that they're okay, and getting their feelings, finding out, how their communities are receiving what has happened here. And I got to tell you, they are devastated. They are in a lot of pain because, this does set us back somehow, but will not destroy us because we are stronger than that. And what I'm also seeing is people coming together in an alliance in support of the Black community, in letting them know that we are not going to let them down, that we are going to fight for them just like we're fighting for our own communities and for our own families. They are our brothers and sisters, and whoever they are, if you Asian, if you are from Oaxaca, wherever you are, just know that we love you. We care for you. The people, there are community leaders out there that will give their lives for you, not because of a title, not because they're trying to be noticed, because they doing the right thing for the community, because they love their communities. So you have a lot of support. We show that when the pandemic hit, when the government failed us, the people stepped up. We stepped up for each other. And that's what's going to happen here. I see that people are going to come together more than ever. And they're going to see that if the street vendors are being taken advantage of, we're going to step in there and we're going to protect them. If those people in the sex industry are struggling and are being abused and everything else, we're going to step in there. If the Black community, whoever they may be, are having a difficult time, we're going to step in there. We're going to make sure that there's food being provided to their communities. And that's what we are working towards, in making sure that today more than ever, we step up to the plate. This is a time when we have to show courage. This is a time when we have to show love for one another. And I embrace my brothers and sisters of the Black community and let them know that all of us here at Stand Up Fight Back, and people that we represent behind us, thousands of people all over the United States that love social justice, stand with you. And we hold your hands high and let you know that, whatever they did or whatever they say doesn't represent us. We know better. We are better than that.
Amen, brother. Jackie, any final thoughts? We're out of time.
I think Carlos pretty much said a lot that was in my mind and heart. But at the end of the day, I really hope everybody, that's watching, call in your family members. It all starts in our families. It all starts with our friends and those conversations that we allow just to slide down. Let them know why it's not okay. Let them know that this is an example of what anti-Indigenous, anti-Blackness, and even anti-Asian sentiments feel like and do in a real scenario. These are not just words. These are not just conversations we have in private. These are real things that we do. And it really does cause a lot of harm, even death. And we have the ability with our words and the language that we use to turn them into love, to turn them into care. And when we do that, we're able to really change things around. Language is so powerful. And when we engage in understanding how to change it and why we have to change it, the world is going to change. So I do hope people do that inner work, because that is the way that we're going to be able to change our families, change our friends, and with that, change our communities and the institutions we live in. That's what I'm going to close with today.
Margaret, if I may, we want to dedicate this program today to the Black community. We want to dedicate this program to the Indigenous community. We want to dedicate this program to the Oaxacan community. And to all the leaders that are working in those communities. We see you. We see you, and we love you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in with us. You've been watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. We air every Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We simulcast on Facebook and YouTube at Inside Out News. You can see the name right down there. That's how you spell it, Inside Out News on YouTube. And please join us. We'll be back next week. And earlier today, you can watch the recording. Earlier on the show, we had two people who were over at Kevin DeLeon's house with Black Lives Matter. They're currently there protesting and demanding that Kevin DeLeon resign. You can see their demands there at the link below, and you can join them. They really want people to come by and be part of the protest and stand in solidarity. They're over at La Rota and Fair Park Avenue. So that's where they're at. That's near Occidental College, right here, La Rota and Fair Park Avenue. Excuse me. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Hi, everyone.